going on, everybody? You are live with Osiris. Welcome to the Author's Lounge. The world is filled with storytellers, and I, along with my guests, are here today in the Author's Lounge to help educate and inspire the young generation of writers and creators. Now, my guests are professionals in publishing, writers from a wide range of formats, and successful entertainers. They will provide beneficial advice on what to do and what not to do on your path to success. So, without further ado, I'll present to you our next guest. Let's go.
I have such a wonderful person with me today. She has been someone who has been supportive, not just of me, but my sobrina. Many may remember her when she was doing her book tour with the book titled Adi's Wish. Her name was Flocka M. So our guest came through and showed a ton of support. And then from then up to the present time, she's been supportive of a supporter of mine and vice versa. So I reached out to her and I finally got the nerves out and I just figured, can I just ask if she could come on? And she was so down. So without further ado, I present to you the wonderful children's book author and award-winning author, Debbie Gonzalez. How you doing today?
Ooh, I'm well, thank you. I'm so excited. I'm really pumped for this conversation.
Yeah, no, it's cool. And I know, there's a lot of different mediums out there where people do podcasts, whether it's in person or in this medium like virtual. But I think that just having conversations about the process and how people operate and what they do creatively helps continue to motivate and inspire people to do the same. And so however the message can get out and come across, I think is an exceptional path. So for you, we were talking beforehand before the recording about just the basics of taking in, when people give you your flowers and kind of backtracking on it of more like almost like it's imposter syndrome, So want to ask just kind of your overall process. First, when it comes to writing stories, where do you get your ideas from?
My stories come from my day-to-day life. So my Cooper books are based on real events from his fictional perspective. And when I first had the thought of wanting to write books, and I had this little journal, it sat a blank for like maybe a year. It was working with a coach that she said, maybe if you just put it on some other piece of paper, that I then allowed myself to write down little snippets because ideas will come, as you're driving, stuck in traffic, that sort of thing.
Yep.
And that's where I started kind of getting those moments, but it's just about everyday life. Like a walk was a walk.
Yeah. And, it's funny you say that because I've felt that similar, I've taken that similar approach where I have had just crazy ideas come at the most random times. And sometimes jotting it down has helped me, but then I lose it. And I'm like, wait, where did I put it? I'll write it in a random notebook and then I'll lose that. Where do you keep up with your ideas? Is it in a well-organized position where you can just go back to the ideas, or do you like mental notes?
I kept the journal. So I put it all into one book.
Yeah.
And so what I did was, with that, as I started learning the process, I write it into that. So that book gave me then the map, right? Because after writing the first book and all of the different things that I learned, when I went to do the next book, I go to those pages to see what were some of the things.
Yeah.
And so that was having the one notebook. So while I have the little snippets of ideas and those folded papers, I have folders, and then I have that book where I put them in, so I can easily go back and pull at it and look at it to see what were some of just some of the lessons.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. Once you do the first one and it's out there, there's always a moment where you're like, ooh, I could have done this differently. I could have done that differently. And so you put that into the next book.
Oh, wow. So you have a whole process down pat, how you keep up. I would have lost my mind just jotting down just different ideas. I wouldn't have known, oh, wait, this idea went this way. I don't know. Now, when it comes to writing, right? I understand
Hmm.
there's two different versions of a writer, at least in the terms for as an author, which is being a plotter or a pantser. And I'm curious for you, and you seem like a well organized person, and that doesn't mean that if people are the opposite of being a plotter, that they're not organized. But I'm curious, when you write, do you need to plot out everything beforehand and then create the story? Or do you just need like a simple idea and then the story progresses as you're writing it?
I'm not as much of a plotter. I think I grab moments, and
Hmm.
so those different little snippets of ideas. I have a general concept of where I want to go,
Hmm.
and for me, it's all about the feel.
Yeah.
When and I've got Cooper is in the lab because he's got to be in the mix, right? He's in my
Yeah.
lab right now. And that feeling that I get with him, that whole awe moment,
Hmm.
is ultimately what I want to convey in the story. And so I have those little snippets that I write down, and then I kind of just put them together
Hmm.
and see how it flows from there. Um, sometimes I have. Sometimes I'll start with the title first.
Yeah.
Usually, you get the title after, and go from there. But
Yeah.
it's letting the little pieces, because there are these moments, there's these scenes. Like there's this one story that I have, a manuscript that I haven't published yet, and I wanted to freshen it up, and I was like, how do I want to make it snappy? And I went back to those old snippets that I'd
Hmm.
written that I did not get to use in the books that I'd already published.
Nice.
And I was like, ooh, this could fit in nicely here as the opening scene.
Yeah.
So it, my husband would say I hoard, but I save stuff.
It's an organized chaos. What is he talking about?
Yes, that's exactly. It's organized. I do, I'm an arts and crafts kind of person.
Hmm.
And so I come to writing in a similar way to the arts and crafts, where you might be snipping little pieces of paper and gluing it here and moving it there, and a
Yeah.
sticker and a little paint. And that's kind of how I approach the writing.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I think that it just goes to show, right, that we can age and get older, but our imaginations are still very much youthful, especially in this line of work as a creator, and even more so when you're writing children's books. You got to think on a level that you believe will resonate with children. So, what is your age range of the books that you write? And also, how do you manage to know that you're capturing what you feel would translate to to those children in that age range?
So my age ranges from 3 to 8. The books
Mhm.
hit 3 to 8, and it and I have found that even with just older children, it resonates as well. Part of it is, especially when you're in writing for children, being around children, interacting with children
Mhm.
matters, so that you have some sense of what they like, and what
Mhm.
they enjoy. What brought me to books was my experience reading aloud to third, fourth graders, and it was just a blast.
Yeah.
And it was reading different books, and I like doing the voices. I love your videos with the whole perspective, because
Yeah.
I mean, I like it's on the stage when I'm doing a read aloud.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's the one of my favorite books when you get the whole group of like 5 year olds to move together. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And so there's that kind of experience. And so being able to, it's important to read a lot of books
Mhm.
in your industry.
Mhm.
Read current books, not just the best-selling books. You want to read as many books as you can get your hands on,
Yep.
um, as well as being around children. So I had the opportunity within what my job was at the time of working within school. So I had access to kids all the time. I've
Mhm.
got all of the great nieces and nephews at this point,
Yeah.
hitting the age point. And we also volunteer at the library. So
Mhm.
Cooper and I are volunteers, and he is the dog for the Read to the Dog program. And so
Nice.
we have children read to us. And so hearing them read our stories, you
Mhm.
see where they laugh, where they get it, and that's part of what I find really informs
Yeah.
the opportunity for that.
It's all about connection. I love that you get out there and you get
Yes.
involved within the community, because that piece is so imperative as an author who writes within the children's genre. I know, like, so some people do read-alongs to teenagers, but teenagers, especially now, are not as prone, at least in from what I've observed and what I've experienced as well, not as prone to want to sit down and listen to a book read as much as they would rather watch something. Versus the children, it's all interactive, and especially if the reader is animated and or they have a pleasant voice, or a combination of both, it makes it all fun and enjoyable. Now, and also thank you for answering those questions. How often are you publishing your books? Oh, actually, let me retract that before you answer that question. Do you self-publish, or do you go through an indie publisher, or are you trad published, or what's your publishing method?
Okay. So a few things. One, I'm an indie publisher, so I self-publish.
Hmm.
And I was publishing, uh, it was, I was trying to keep up with traditional timelines of publishing and getting a book out every year, but it's very expensive when you self-publish, right? Because the writing is one part, but then the publishing piece is a whole other.
Hmm.
So that part has slowed down, and I'm really just focused on getting my current books out, because
Hmm.
it's still always very interesting who hasn't heard about it yet, even though they've been out there for a while.
Hmm.
But I'll tell you one thing in terms of the age group. I use children's books with adults.
Oh, nice.
I use children's books in profession, because another part of what I do are professional development trainings with
Hmm.
educators, and I
Yeah.
will do read alouds, and I bring the dramatic voice, and I have had audiences of adults just, you could drop a pin and hear it in the room.
Yeah.
And part of it is that presentation of how you can engage, right? And there
Yeah.
are some wonderful stories that help create an experience. And I try to bring some of the diverse books to give educators the sense of the experience that children might have in a way that allows a conversation that people might be uncomfortable with otherwise,
Hmm.
but without being always in your face. Because I think, sometimes what happens is when people get into writing books for children, they're very specific about the lesson that they're trying to give.
Yeah.
And so I'm a social worker by trade.
Oh,
And
nice. Yeah,
so I would engage with families at the most, you know, um, devastating moments in their
for
lives.
sure.
And so part of what I want, that's
Mhm.
part of the whole awe effect in my stories. I just want it to be a good time.
Yep.
Like, I had a 5-year-old point out that there wasn't a lot of tension in my first book. And I said, that was intentional. Because the children that I engaged with always had a lot of tension. And so I want my stories to be something that they don't have to worry about when they're turning the page.
Yeah.
And mind you, when you go to writing classes, right, it's always about what's the tension in the book.
Hmm.
I mean, as an adult, there are times I'm reading a book, if too much tension, I got to skip.
Yeah.
I got to skip ahead because
Hmm.
I can't handle it. So, that becomes part of the intentionality.
Hmm.
And so that there's room. And I think that part of where some of our older children hesitate with some of the stories is because of the stigma that's been put around about what books you should be enjoying and reading at a particular age.
Right.
I think one of the things about my journey as an author has really opened up the opportunity where I'm reading picture books, I'm reading middle grade, I'm
Yeah.
reading, YA, and I'm loving it. And I'm a better reader for it
Hmm.
now, for giving myself permission for that.
Yeah.
And that's actually a message I like getting out there for the young ones.
Hmm. I think that it's really important to, like, not be subjected to what society thinks the person should do, right? And it goes right along the lines of what you're talking about, where you get to a certain age and people feel like, okay, here, you're at this age now, you shouldn't be reading those books. You shouldn't really be reading books for 4-year-olds. And people just don't understand. But I think it's us, even if you're not an author and you still want to read those books, I think it's perfectly fine. And
Absolutely.
yeah, oh, go ahead, go ahead.
No, absolutely. I agree. I'm constantly recommending that. And so even, if you're not an author, but there are times where, uh, even online, right? So I love how sweet you've been about just kind of feeling that support. After I
Mhm.
made sure you were a real person and not another scam that came
Oh,
through on the DM.
oh yeah.
I was like, here's what your niece can do, right? And so the there are times where I'll see something and I'll be like, hey, this children's book would be a great way to tackle that situation.
Hmm.
So, it's like the prescriptions of this children's book could help answer that issue.
Yeah, oh yeah. No, it's so funny when you think about DMs, and I just reached out to someone earlier today too. She does this, I don't even know how you call it. I think it's called like on camera directing when you're watching like live events and you see the camera angle
Yeah.
constantly change.
Oh, yeah,
She
yeah.
she's the one who's responsible for that, and so I reached out to her and I'm like, how do I not sound like a bot? How do I not sound robotic? And so a lot of my messages are like, okay, I'm just gonna type away. I'm gonna keep it brief, but she's gonna know this is a human being with the exclamation marks and all the crazy quirkiness to it. And I think that's important. I mean, well, maybe not be as animated like that, but I think when you're trying to get a message across to somebody, if you're trying to collaborate with them online where you're not necessarily meeting them in person, um, is can be really tricky because there are a ton of scam artists out there and also people who are it's AI produced. So how do you decipher between the two? And I think when
Yeah.
you I think what helps is having that catalog, right? Like going into your Instagram, for example, as just one of the places to go and view your work. Going into your Instagram, you can readily see how accessible your material is to know this is a real person. But when you're
Yeah.
just
Uh-huh.
starting out and you don't have that, it
Yes.
can be tough. So like for you, when you started to build on this ecosystem that you've created for yourself at the beginning
Mhm.
up till now, right? How hard was it for you to get people to buy into you, Debbie Gonzalez, versus anything else?
It's really about authentically showing up,
Yeah.
right? Like the, you know, I am who I am, right? So this energy, that's always there. And so I'll interact with people. And so it's commenting on their posts, it's
Yeah.
commenting on their stories, it's laughing. Sometimes I feel like I'm a bit of a stalker because, the algorithm will keep showing me your stuff. And I'm like, and it's not just if you have a series of stories, I'm watching each one and I'm responding to each one because that's just how I like to
Yeah.
engage. And I have found, I have made some wonderful connections
Hmm.
on Instagram of people that, across the state,
Yep.
across the
Yep. Right
country.
here.
And right. So that has been really wonderful. And that was where one person at a time, where you're
Hmm.
interacting authentically, not just about trying to get my stuff promoted,
Yep.
right? It is about um, sharing their stories. Uh,
Hmm.
my goodness gracious, sharing a condolence because people are living their lives, right? There
Yep.
are all these different things that are happening, celebrating their successes. And that has really generated, because now it sends you to the next person, to the next person.
Hmm.
And then your algorithm starts blooming with other people.
Yeah.
And the one of the things that when I first started, I used to be able to get through all of the stories that came up on top of
Yeah.
everybody that. Now I can't because there's so many people, right? The more
Yeah. That's
people
a good problem to have,
you
right?
know it's a good problem.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I remember when I was so excited when I got to 100, and I'm like,
Hmm.
I've lost track. I think I'm over the 800 at this point.
Yeah.
But
Check you out.
that's all been just kind of the authentic
Yep.
interactions. And that just, you can smell through when someone is just hitting you up for the favor,
Yep.
right? And it's a different piece of,
Hmm.
hey, someone recommended me to you. Could you answer this question? I'm more than happy to answer questions. I have been poured into. I have met people online. I've met more others online, just so generously shared. And I believe in giving back, right? And
Hmm.
paying forward. And so all of that really matters, but it's got to be authentic.
Yeah.
Don't hit me in the thing and be like, hey, and and you've got nothing on your page. You're not really doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
So that part of it matters. I mean, I think that, again, that's part of when you sent me the note, but like, would you like to come on? I was like, oh my goodness. It took me all of like 2 seconds to
Yeah.
decide because, I've seen what you put out there, and it's real. I love it. And I love your whole 2 scene things. It's really exciting.
Oh man.
I
Yeah,
really enjoy those.
I really appreciate it. Yeah,
It's frozen. And then you
oh
do,
no, it's good.
I
No,
like,
it's good. And
I
trust
love
me
that.
too. If it like glitches up while we're recording on the full version, it's not gonna. It'll be fluid. So it does that sometimes. It's choppy. But thank you so much for the kudos and just for the acknowledgement. And I feel the same way when it comes to supporting you. Like I've really appreciated what your work has represented, who it impacts, and how you're so bold and in their face in a respectful and genuine manner. You don't. I
Mm.
could tell you're a nice person, right? But I can also tell that you're not somebody who people can walk over. So it's one of those I don't want to. I would hate to see her angry type of an ordeal. But where I'm getting at, right, is that when you can almost sometimes, go to somebody's page, and when they're not smiling, depending on the context, like if they're a model or something like that, not smiling might go along
Right.
with their brand. But if
Right.
you're trying to send them a message, if you want to converse with them, it can almost be off-putting if they look angry, if they just look a certain way that might make you feel naturally intimidated, like, okay. But then, because I've seen that a few times where I was like, oh man, they look kind of mean. I don't. Let me just give my shot, and then they're just super nice. And so part of that is just me kind of like how I grew up. This probably sounds wrong because I know you shouldn't go and look at people and judge them based off of how they look and determine if they are mean or if they're not. But some people just genuinely look mean. They just look mean. And
That might be their brand, right? That might be
yep.
their brand.
Yeah. And, but I think to that note, right, like once you get to a point where you feel like, you know what, that stuff shouldn't bother me anymore, and you just go where the wind takes you, approach it how you should. And sometimes when you do that, you recognize that it was never as bad as you thought it was to begin with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah. You got to shoot your shot, right? You got to shoot your shot.
yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. And I've learned that just I think I've pitched so much just hosting this show because I've run a few podcasts in the past, but
Hmm.
I recognized really early from somebody who heard it that I worked with. He came up to me and he said, I really love what you're doing, but I think what would make it more interesting is if you had a guest. And this was a completely different show that I don't have anymore. And once I stopped
Hmm.
doing podcast shows and I took a break and I realized if I'm going to bring something back, I want it to be an interactive piece where every episode is a guest. Like people can hear me
Mm.
talk all day long, but I want it to be, and I tried that, but I'd rather be like this, just completely interactive. And it does help with the authenticity, the brand building, and what you're trying to cultivate to a community, especially online. And I just said this yesterday about the importance of not only establishing a social media presence, but using social media to really expose yourself to more opportunities. How has social media helped you with more exposure for more opportunities?
Mm. Well, this opportunity right here is, a perfect example. And I saw that video, and I couldn't agree with you more,
Oh,
because that is the part, right? Because there is something about, you may not get it immediately,
hmm,
but it sits out there, which is part of why, when I'm giving advice, I say go viral for the right reasons.
yeah, yeah, yep, yep,
Right? And because everything you put out there, I had someone reach out to me a few months ago about one of my videos from years ago.
hmm,
One of the things when I first started out, which was kind of my first book launch speech,
hmm,
and it had resonated for them, right? And
hmm,
so the that's where it becomes important to be consistent in your messaging,
yeah,
right? So if you're if you're trying to put a persona out into this universe of the internet
Yeah.
and it's not aligned with your values and who you are, it is difficult to be consistent.
Yep.
And so one of the things for me is, even like when I look at some of my old videos, I'm like, oh, the messaging is still there, right? The essence of it is the same. And I think that that's what resonates for people.
Mhm.
And so that when you never know who's going to see your stuff, you
Right.
just don't. And who's going to, again, some of those connections, and so that opportunity of how you learned about me from the beginning to reach out, right? That
Mhm.
was someone's mentioning. That is part of where the platform can be really very helpful.
Yeah.
And so, being consistent in your message, being able to, it doesn't mean you have to be on all the time and posting every single thing,
Mhm.
but it does help to also engage with others, right?
Right.
So that it also, because you build off the energy. Because I saw that the video that you had on the stories, like stalking. So the Viola
Oh.
Davis, right? The vibe, and you prepare, but
Mhm.
you go with what is present.
Right.
And I think that that's what I enjoy about the interactions, and the messages that get to come out when you're in the midst of these conversations.
Yeah. No, those are such valid points. And even going back in time, like going back to the earlier pieces of, okay, let's look at some of the work here. Even I encourage everyone who is on social media, especially social media,
Hmm.
to just do an audit, a quick audit on yourself, and go back in time and see where the messages are. Because what I tend to do with people, especially when they have hundreds of followers, if not thousands of followers, if I see millions of
Yeah.
followers, but I see low engagement,
Oof.
I question the authenticity of of that followership. Um, I'm a
Yeah.
firm believer in, okay, you can have those high numbers, but what's the engagement? Because the engagement matters a lot. And sometimes people don't comment, that's fine. But like, what's the consistency in your messages and in the engagement with your messages? And I understand too, starting out, you're not going to really get much engagement. And as you progress, you're
Hmm.
going to slowly you're going to trickle in some people who are going to really vibe with you. Some people may, some people may not. And I think
Hmm.
the most important piece is just remaining true to yourself and also not being afraid to diversify what you put out there, right? Like, if, for
Yep.
example, with yourself, you do children's books, but if you just did only here's my book, here's what I'm talking about, I that would probably very quickly. I tried that as well, and it just fizzled. But I
Hmm.
think what helped you is that
Yeah.
you do outreach. You also have a background, a social work background, so you also understand empathy, and you know how to converse with people just by trade. So that also helps, I
Hmm.
would imagine, translating emotions into your story.
Hmm.
Sorry, I thought it looked like you wanted to
And
say something. I didn't want to.
no, it's that, right? That's part of the secret sauce. Being how to have the conversation, how to show up with empathy.
Mhm.
It I think that that's also something that can be lost, is that within social media, and so it's constantly changing,
Mhm.
right? In the years that I've been on this platform, it's constantly changing, so you've got to be ready to go with that flexibility, and uh whether you're not now doing carousel, right? Like all of those different pieces and
Mhm.
utilizing the tools that are put out there and all of that business. Um, but people want to know about you, the person.
Right.
And so if you're only putting the product out, that goes back to the selling, right?
Yeah.
You're always just trying to sell to me. And
Mhm.
I find that uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I don't like being sold to. And so, sometimes I can be too much not putting my stuff out there to sell because I'm uncomfortable being sold to.
Right.
Uh, and so that's part of being able to have the moments, the life, the things with the dog, the
Mhm.
family, right? Like, Cooper is the muse, and he's the cutie pie that has to
Yeah.
get, one of his pictures goes a long way.
No, for sure. And what you've done with Cooper, right, is really is interesting in such a great way, because you've figured out quite early on the importance of almost like establishing a mascot in a sense. Like, okay, hey, there's consistency here with this character with Cooper. And now you look at characters like with Dr. Seuss or with Clifford the Big Red Dog or Snoopy, or Garfield, and there's a commonality. Even Pete the Cat, right? There's a commonality when it comes to these books, and you learned that this is going to be my muse right here. This is going to be my go-to, my character. And I think what's even more interesting about how you view in talking to you, how you view doing your work is that you just understand your audience. You just
Mm.
you fully understand who you're writing for, what the messages are that you want to be conveyed, and you know where to find them, whether it's online through their parents or is at schools. And I think that that's unfortunately tricky for many people, especially starting out, to kind of discombobulated and calling it kind of all over the place and not
Oh, yeah.
knowing where to start
Mm-hmm.
and how to go. And that's understandable.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it just comes to, and maybe you'll agree with this part of knowing who you're writing for is probably one of the most important pieces of writing anything. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, when you're writing for children, you also need to think about the adults, right? Because many of the younger population, right, the younger side are not haven't learned to read yet. So if I 3 to 8, my 3-year-olds are going to have the adults reading to them, and they're going to, if the kids enjoy the book, they're going to read that book a lot. They need to be a little bit entertained by it as well.
Yeah.
Right. And so, that matters. And I think that finding your audience, because yes, when we start out, we're throwing out a big net and trying to get everybody, and that doesn't work. Because then nobody feels like they're connected to it because you're trying to hit everybody. You really, as you go along, that's where you tweak and you edit and you come in. Like, I have then come to find that a big part of my audience at this point that I've noticed are other educators, elementary school teachers, and many are parents as well. And that gets me into these other communities.
Right
And
there.
because
Yep.
in the journey so when I did my first book, I was just excited to see my name on a book cover. I was like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And in getting out doing events, and I had a parent travel from Connecticut to Manhattan just because of that Spanish surname on there for her daughter to meet me. It then brought the need to represent my Latin heritage more specifically. And that's where then I have now the bilingual aspect in the book. And now that's taking me to a whole other circle of audience, right? And so it's also, I think, being open to the fact that your audience and it's like any relationship. You evolve and you grow together and things tweak.
That's beautiful. And you reminded me of my niece of Ariana, where we were contemplating how we should go about with her book. So she's most of our family's from Guadalajara, in Mexico, and she is fluent in Spanish. And so I was thinking, okay, and at the time I was doing indie publishing. I was the publisher of publishing teenagers. That was kind of my focus. I want to help get them established, get them kind of, give them just a little push. So when they go and do it again, they would understand the concept. I didn't take any money from them at all. I just helped them set it up. I would often talk to the parents, and I would help them set up everything. I wouldn't take any of their banking information, none of that stuff, because my objective was just to, one, help them understand the ideology of passive income, and two, like ownership, and then three, going through with your creative process. Because once you graduate high school and you hit that, whether you go to college or the military or whatever you go, unless you are fortunate enough to make a living in doing that before all of that begins, life is going to smack you silly, and you may catch yourself not doing that anymore. And so I wanted to help get that push for them. But with Ariana, when we were doing her book, we understood, like, really, really, really early, the importance of having it in two languages. Because she's Latina, we wanted that to be represented in its truest form. Why release a book in
Yeah.
just one language when there's a Latino on the cover of the book and
Hmm.
part of your heritage is from Mexico? Let's do both, and it worked out really well. It worked out very well. So
Yeah.
I just had to mention that because you were a supporter of her. So
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I love it. And that's, when I didn't think about it, right? So, like, I did the first book, my name is on it, right? I'm like, I'm a Puerto Rican woman. I'm like, okay. And I live my life as a Latina. I don't walk
uh-huh.
around going, I'm a Latina, right? So
Yeah.
I didn't think to have to explicitly put that out there. And it is what I find is that it is too subtle, right? It's my first two books. It's subtle. I'm in the story, right? I am the mommy to Cooper in the story.
Hmm.
Um, my husband's goatee, and that he came into the second book as a character, kind of
Yeah.
gives it away. But that's another story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. There was some elements that were coming out, but it was really subtle. And so that was where very intentionally, when I got to the third book, was bringing in the Spanish phrasing. And at that point, that's when Abuela came on. And because while it was part of the Cooper series,
Hmm.
but it was different in that there was Spanish in it, that's where then Abuela graced the cover with him, because it tells you that while it's a Cooper book, there's something different in this one because there's somebody else on it.
Yeah.
And then you see the subtlety of their instruments, and of course my illustrator, Kate Fallahy, who I love and adore, did such a beautiful job
Yeah.
creating the island vibe on the cover, right? So you know from just looking at the cover that it's a little bit different.
Hmm.
And so, but that was, and we have all kind of Easter egg moments in the story, right? Because those
Yeah.
are the things that you learn as you can develop that give those clues. And then when I'm reading that story, when I'm telling a story, I wrote it for children like myself that are
Hmm.
bilingual, that can switch languages back. You're in the middle of a conversation and you say one thing in Spanish, you say the other thing in English, because people who do not or are monolingual don't understand that the multiple languages are running through your head at the same time.
Hmm.
You're not switching it on and off. It's all there. And so that was part of that. And so I'm really excited that your niece brings in that component and expands the representation in our
Hmm.
industry.
Oh yes, and it's needed. I think the representation of minorities is paramount. And I think it's even more important when it's done through the lens of self-publishing, because getting in the mixes of the trad published world, and I don't know this from experience, but I'm only speaking from what I've been told from people who's within it. The overall message is that the initial thing that went into the system, it came out different. It didn't come out in a
Yeah.
way that and I understand edits and that
Yeah.
process. I do understand that. But in many cases, the message that was initially wanted to be conveyed was subdued a bit to meet the industry standards. And I think
Hmm.
that some people who've gone that route self-published the following sequel, and they were able to be more personable, and in that being able to be like more true to themselves and their story, they were able to garner in more people. But however the message gets out there is how it gets. But I do think representation matters greatly, and people not being afraid to show that, just because of what books may look like as a whole, an overall arching percentage of it. I think it's still important to not be afraid to feel that you belong to. So I'll ask you
Yeah.
just one more question, and then I'll let you get out of here. So, and again, thank you for your time for being on here. So,
Oh, I
uh,
appreciate it.
of course, yeah, the success that you have, great, wonderful family that you have, and the things that you've been able to do for yourself. Where can people find you? How can they find your work and really be a supporter of yours as well?
I am most active here on Instagram. Koopa Loop Stories is where, again, that's where I uh, am always kind of putting out the cutie stuff. But I also have the website, DebbieGonzalezAuthor.com, and that's Gonzalez with a Z.
Mhm.
And so that website, you can find all of my links and things to where the books are, the opportunities to schedule author visits, because that is one of the ways where, studies will show that that helps to motivate children to be readers and to inspire them,
Mhm.
and being able to bring the person who's written the book. And so one of the things I think for tight budgets is that indie authors can sometimes get in, but I digress. So you can find me, yes, on my website, and there's all of that information there, and this particular Instagram. I have some stuff on YouTube as well, but Instagram is where I shine.
Okay. Hey, no, that's perfect. So what I'll do is I'll make sure that your website and your Instagram information is in the bio or description of the video, and also the audio version of this episode. Hey, so this been wonderful. Any closing remarks before I let you go?
I am so grateful that you reached out,
Okay.
and truly appreciate the messaging that you put out there, the positivity that you put out there. And so I wish you much success, my dear.
Thank you so much. Oh, that means so much. Um, got me stuttering over here. Thank you. That's very kind of you to say. I greatly appreciate it. And likewise, and I think that, success breeds success. Like-minded people attract one another. And so it's good to be in your company, and it's good to be able to be a supporter of yours as well. And I'm going to be really excited to continue to see you go forward. Oh, before I forget, before we close out, we had mentioned, there's something going on for you where where you're going to need some sort of votes. Can you really
Hmm.
quick just describe what that is, and so that way we can make sure that people get their voting on?
Ilana B. Books is running the Indie Best Books 2025 on Instagram. And two of my books were nominated, A Walk with Cooper and A Visit with Cooper. And you get one vote per day. I'm in the children's category. And if you go to my Instagram, you'll see where the links are. And you can either DM her or go to a particular post that we have the links to, and vote for one of the books. I think A Visit with Cooper is ahead right now, so we'll lend that a little bit more love.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can vote. You can vote for us there, for excellence in writing.
Yeah.
It's really cool. As someone, and my pal Sonia Blanco was the one who nominated me, and so it did. That's really sweet too, right? That
That's
somebody, again, all of these connections
mhm.
that come up. So that was lovely, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's through December 10th where you can vote, and it's been a blast.
Oh my goodness, that is awesome. That's a perfect way to close it out, and I'm going to be voting as well. I'm glad there's daily votes so I can do it daily as well. Hey, thank you all so much for taking the time out of your day to tune into today's episode. Debbie, thank you so much for coming on, and hey, that's all we got.
My pleasure.
You all take care. I'll catch you next time. Bye.